everybody, and welcome to the public AMA with Adam Kokesh on Ask a Libertarian. I'm not sure exactly how I'm supposed to be plugged into this one properly, or if I'm in the right place. So if someone can confirm for me that this is the right way to be doing this, if Tim or whoever else helped set this up can put in a comment in this live stream, let me know that we're doing this right. I would greatly appreciate it. So according to Tim, who set this up, I'm supposed to be watching this on my laptop as well for questions. So I got that pulled up. Although I've been doing these Facebook lives every day for the last few weeks, and I'm pretty good at managing the questions from my phone. So we'll see if it works to do it that way. And I was asked to do a bit of a lengthy introduction to let people... have some stuff to ask questions about. But let me go in here. I'm going to read these comments from Ask a Libertarian, make sure that we're doing this right. We would like to welcome you to Ask a Libertarian. Ask a Libertarians. Ask me anything with Libertarian Party presidential candidate Mark Whitney. Wrong text. Let's see. We'd like to welcome you to Ask a Libertarian. Ask me anything Libertarian. No, with Mark Whitney. All right. So let's see. Can anybody else confirm for me in the comments on the live stream that we're doing this right, that I'm in the right place? All right, Tim, I got the comment from Tim on the chat. Wow, I'm doing this right. Awesome. Thank you so much, Tim. Greatly appreciate you setting this up. And it says, keep your eyes on this thread. Okay, so I guess they're going to be managing the questions for me and making sure that I get them. So I am here. I am set up streaming from my phone as I do 5 days a week with Adam versus the Man. I've got my eyes on this thread, and it's Tim in there that's got me, Lima Charlie. I guess if I'm not doing any audio interaction, I can take the headset out and be a little more relaxed about this. Everybody's got my audio good. So, my hair, as you can see, I am in my work clothes. I've been here working on geodesics all day at the Garden of Freedom, and I am so excited. I guess the silver lining, a part of the silver lining of the coronaphobia cloud is that I get to come home and spend a little more time at the garden that I would otherwise be spending driving as part of touring, dealing with logistics. Although I have to say, I really do miss the touring. I miss seeing all of your beautiful faces of all the great libertarians all over the country. And it was a real travesty that we got into this phase of the Libertarian Party primary, and me and my crew were caught in the midst of the coronaphobia lockdowns in Detroit, Michigan. And we decided we're going to go to Texas. Since Michigan shut down, we were in Illinois, in Peoria, for their convention the day before the Michigan convention was supposed to be, but got canceled. And so we went to Texas, hoping that, you know, most of this would blow over before we realized how deep the phenomena of the lockdowns, of the shutdowns actually was. And so it's been a really interesting trip. We went and did a coronaphobia bug out tour, and we've made this property here. I got 10 acres in the mountains in the middle of nowhere, down 3 miles of private dirt road, about the safest place you could possibly be right now. So I'm going to just check in on this thread again, make sure I'm not missing anything. Refresh the feed, it should be up. All right, so Tim, you want me to do an introduction here then of the platform and talk about that for a minute? I know we've got a bit of a delay, so I should tell people that at the end of this, if you stick around, I'm gonna pick up the camera and we're gonna do a little quick tour of the Garden of Freedom, and you're gonna see the geodesic sphere that we just built. And I'll show you the house that I'm building, and the greenhouse in the works, and the outdoor planter, and the workshop, and all the cool stuff here. So if you guys want, I can just start answering questions off of the chat, because I don't know, I'm supposed to let Tim moderate and be the filter here. But Tim writes, how would you handle the coronavirus response, Adam? Well, I really should back up, Tim. If you're going to introduce me essentially by virtue of this media here, this format, this forum that you created in this series as a presidential candidate, I have to explain that I'm not a psychopath, right? Because you have to be some kind of psychopath to want to be president of the United States. And my platform is fundamentally different in that what we are doing is turning the federal election into a referendum on whether or not the federal government should be allowed to exist at all. My platform is the peaceful, orderly, and responsible dissolution of the entire United States federal government in a bankruptcy that leaves us with up to 50 independent states and up to 562 now sovereign, truly sovereign native nations. And this is part of localization. So I have to get that out even before answering the question, how would you handle the coronavirus response? Because my platform isn't to put on the ring of power, it's to throw it directly into the fire. I resign on day one to become the custodian of the federal government, the bankruptcy agent. And so you say, what would I do if I were wearing the ring of power? Well, I wouldn't be. But what I can tell people that's so important here, and tell you all, is that the response to the coronavirus would have been much better without the government at all, without the government in charge of resources, without the government in charge of regulations, without the government hampering the response. And there are a number of ways that it has done this. One, and this is really the most tragic and offensive, is the secrecy around the data. And I got to hand it to the Chinese government for being the worst in this, but Trump's no better, asking the CDC to do their deliberations in private, in secret, and to not share that data. That we have conflicting data, that we have different means of collecting it. You think, oh, government, we need government for uniformity. Well, no, look at this. We need a global response to a global health phenomena, and we want to have a consistent way of tracking the data. And instead, we're forced to go with, well, whatever China says is a corona case, is a corona death. And I don't know, my favorite example of the statistics being manipulated was the case of that guy who was skydiving and his parachute didn't open, and then right before he hit the ground, he died of coronavirus. Got to keep cases like that in mind when it comes to what's the real threat here. And the more we see the data, the more we see the responses were completely out of proportion. If we had better data, that would have been possible. But more importantly, there is not a single crisis that justifies throwing away basic principles, getting away with basic libertarian ethics, all the basic rights that are supposedly protected by the Constitution, all the things that President Trump has done that are unethical, the socialism, the fascism, the totalitarianism, and I don't use those as just dramatic buzzwords. Socialism, $6 trillion of liquidity, government consolidating control of economic resources with the stimulus package. Donald Trump, fascism, Donald Trump coming out and directly saying that they're going to buy stock in some companies as the government take control. But that's the definition of fascism, the merging of corporations and the state, and then saying restaurants are going to, they might close and then come back with different ownership. Okay. And then totalitarianism. He came out and said it just the other day in his press conference that the president has total power in this. So all of the basically, if you say, what would the libertarian response be to the coronavirus? Basically what we're doing now, but without any of the shitty parts, without the unnecessary lockdowns, without the restrictions on the medical industry, without the bailout, without the stimulus, without the government making, breaking your leg and then giving you a crutch and saying, see, if it wasn't for the government, you wouldn't be able to walk. Except now we see it's a really shitty crutch. $1,200 bailout, individual stimulus that you might get before the end of the year. I know we've only got 25 people watching right now, but how many of you got your stimulus check, got your $1,200? And for those of you who lost a job as a server or a bartender or somebody else, or a stripper, I don't know how many strippers are there in the audience today, but if you lost your job, is $1,200 really going to cut it? No, of course not. And you know what's messed up about this? Government employees and people in the military are getting stimulus checks too, $1,200. They didn't lose their job. They didn't suffer. And who gets the stimulus checks first? The good taxpayers, not the non-filers. Oh no, you got to be a good little citizen, and that's who gets rewarded, and that's messed up. So what is your stance on income tax? Taxation is theft. Now, a lot of what we're talking about with localization is getting government down to the community level where it's voluntary, it's by choice, it's consensual, not non-consensual, right? So nothing is forced on you. So hypothetically, you could have an income tax, but it wouldn't be an income tax if it was voluntary, if it was at a community-based government. So if you take the coercion element out of it, I would say, well, it doesn't meet the definition of tax, but, you know, it's the same thing with government. Could you have a voluntary government? Yeah, hypothetically, you could have a voluntary income tax that is not theft, that is not coercion. But everything that we know as an income tax under government is a form of theft. Do you have any ideas about how to reform our monetary system? I got a similar question with the Raining Blood podcast that I did right before this, and that's reigning as in the king reigns supreme, or Trump thinks he is the reigning sovereign in the United States, not reigning as in raining blood. But it was a great question, and it was, do you think we should displace the dollar with Bitcoin or cryptocurrency? And the answer has to be twofold to that. One is that fiat currency is fundamentally unethical. It is a currency that is forced on us. Fiat, by declaration of government, doesn't just mean it has value because government says it has value. It has value because it's backed up with the violence of the government, and there are laws that say you can't create a competing currency. Of course, Bitcoin found a brilliant way around that, Satoshi. But the one thing that we have to say unequivocally is that the concept of a currency being forced on people or laws against people having the money that they want is obscene. It is unethical. And if you don't think about it, you don't realize this, but we can tell the average American, hey, you should have a choice in what kind of money you get to use or not. And if someone forces a kind of money on you and they can create as much as they want whenever they want, guess what? They are going to take advantage of you. No shit. So you should have that choice restored. Now, what you do with that choice, second part of the answer here, right? What you do with that choice is up to you. Once we have free market money, whether it's crypto or gold-backed money or physical silver or whatever, it's whatever the market demands. I can say, for my preference, I would want something that is at least as good as Bitcoin, at least as functional as the greatest functionality that we see in cryptos today. As to my plan, what we're doing by getting rid of the federal government is getting rid of that backing entirely, and we are having a tokenized asset redistribution, and that is a way of giving the American people back everything that's been stolen from us. We give you 1,000 tokens of Americoin, a secure crypto token that is the only currency we accept for the liquidating assets of the federal government. So you know the land, half the land in the western states. This is insane, by the way. Most Americans just have no idea. And when you understand how this fountain of money that is government, that is just blown up incredibly under the corona crisis, that now puts more power in the hands of the few, that is designed and set up for the rich to get richer and the poor to get poorer. It is out of control now. One of the ways we take back our birthright, our inheritance that has been stolen from us, is to reclaim that land. It's 50% of the acreage of states west of the Mississippi is owned by the federal government. Well, screw that. We're going to auction it off back to the American people, and the only currency we accept for this is Americoin. So the dollar is going to fade out very quickly in this system. How quickly? Let the market decide. Who am I to force people to stop using the dollar? Nobody, right? And what we can do with Americoin is provide a transition to a world of free market money, because immediately we get rid of the US dollar. Like, it's going to be, the decline of it is going to start immediately. You're going to see just the dollar go to zero. It's hard to predict. Could be within a few months, could be a few years. But we're not going to pull the rug out from underneath anybody, because the new currency is the Americoin, and you get to use this as a practical currency immediately that displaces the dollar, levels the playing field, and gives you the credit for what has been stolen from you. This is not any kind of redistribution in the socialist sense. This is the opposite, based on libertarian property rights, and say we must take back that which has been stolen and return it to its rightful owners, we the American people. So that's how to reform our monetary system. Can you tell us about, this is from Jim Zazo, can you tell us about some historical libertarians that inspire you and why? Well, if I had a copy of my book handy, let me see. I can keep talking. I've got my Bluetooth on. I don't know if I have a copy that has the latest edition with all of the thank yous and the authors in the back, because this is my list. And when I was touring to promote the book, I could rattle off like 20 names off the top of my head. Now this is the thank you page in my book, Freedom. I can't say I'm running for president to sell books because these are free. We give them away at events. It's free in every digital format possible, including audiobook. So I have a lot of personal ones in here. I'm gonna answer with a lot more names than just historical libertarians, but everybody who you might know as a public figure whose inspiration. Abby Hoffman, Adam Smith, Amy Allen, Alex Jones, Andrew Napolitano, Aubrey de Grey, Austin Peterson, Ayn Rand, Barry Cooper, Bob Murphy, Boomer Shannon, Carrie Wedler, Carla Gericke, Carla Howell, Karen Ann Harlos, Catherine Bleich, my father, Charles Kokesh, who won a Supreme Court case 9-0, Chelsea Manning, Cindy Sheehan, Cynthia McKinney, Dan Harmon, Darryl Perry, Dave Barry, David Nolan, Deborah Medina, Dennis Trunov, Derek Brose, Don Rasmussen, Donna Hancock, Doug Stanhope, Drew Carey, Edward Abbey, Edward Snowden, Ernie Hancock, Frederick Bastiat, Friedrich Hayek, Garrett Reppenhagen, Gary Johnson, personal names, Harry Brown, Henry David Thoreau, Henry Hazlitt, J. Neil Schulman, Jake Diliberto, Jared Denman, Jared Kodiker, Jeff Berwick, Jeff Hewitt, Jeff Skoll, Jeffrey Tucker, Jello Biafra, Jesse Ventura, Jimmy Wales, John Bush, John Lennon, John Light, John Locke, John Mackey, John McAfee, who is my running mate now, or running mate to be, John Stossel, John Vives, Jordan Page, Judd Weiss, Julia Turiansky, Julian Assange, Justin Amash, Justin Roiland. Anybody know that name? Let's see. Kenny Palorentano, Kevin Zeese, Leandrew Dixon, Lauren Rumpler, Lou Rockwell, Ludwig von Mises, Luke Radowski, Lynn Ulbricht, Lysander Spooner. Sorry, I thought there were more personal names in this. Let's see. Martin Luther King Jr., Mary Ruart, Matt Stone, Medea Benjamin, Michael Bednarik, Michael Wallace, Mike Adams, Mike Heiss, Mike Nelson, Mike Reynolds, Mike Soffin, Mike Turner, Mohandas Gandhi, Murray Rothbard, in terms of historical libertarians, most important influence, ethics of liberty, Naomi Wolf, Nathan Cox, Nolan Ryan, Penn Jillette, Penny Freeman, Peter Roos, Peter Schiff, Peter Steinmetz, Phoenix Horton, Arlie Wrights, Rich Paul, Roger Ver, Ron Paul, Rosa Parks, Ross Ulbricht, Russell Means, Sam McCutcheon, she was my high school math teacher, Sam Ed Konkin III, Satoshi Nakamoto, Smedley Butler, Socrates, Stefan Molyneux, Steven Pinker, Teller, as in Penn and Teller, Tim Armstrong, Tim Ritchie, Thomas Paine, Tom Lehrer, look up his music, Tom Woods, Trey Parker, and Wayne DeGeer III. So yeah, that's a long list. I think I'm going to skip ahead to the whys, skip past the whys. Brett Boggs, give me your best defense when someone says, but we need police officers and government workers. When someone says we need police officers and government workers, what you're really saying is that we want people to provide certain services. And what police do, generally speaking, is two things. One is the legitimate public safety services of holding real criminals accountable, helping people out on the side of the road, helping with emergency services, things like that. And the other thing is totally illegitimate, enforcing victimless crime laws on behalf of politicians. The drug law, the drug war, all those laws, everything around regulation enforcement, code enforcement, tax enforcement, all these things that are fundamentally unethical. And if you had people who are providing those services working for the people who they were supposed to be serving rather than politicians, you would have those services delivered much better. So if we could get government made voluntary down at the community level or get rid of it entirely, what you'd have is the people who want to provide those police services accountable to you at the community level. Now, whether it's done by government or done by the market really doesn't matter, as long as there's competition in those services and you can withdraw your support at any time. They start doing bad stuff and you keep them doing just the good stuff. And when it comes to government workers, yeah, that's a little bit vague in the question. If someone was asking me that, I might ask them to get more specific. If you say, well, we need IRS agents. Well, if we want to pay for stuff without being stolen from, we don't need them. If you talk about government workers who build roads, well, yeah, we need people to build roads, to have roads. Do you want those people working for politicians, or do you want them working for the people? And in New Mexico, one of the places I'm from, a lot of politicians end up moving interchanges and intersections so that it increases their property value, and there's a huge political manipulation. I want to make sure that the people who build the roads are accountable to the people, not to the politicians. Tim, what can you do to appeal to both right and left-leaning libertarians in terms of both building the party during your campaign as well as policy making if you are elected? Well, this is the ultimate manifestation of libertarianism in policy, and we know that everybody's a libertarian. They just haven't figured it out yet, and that all we have to do is show them that and show them how libertarianism makes their lives better. This transcends the left-right spectrum. So when you say left-leaning libertarians and right-leaning libertarians, I'm not worried about including the people who are already included right next to me. I'm worried about how do we grow the party so much that we include people all across the political spectrum. And when it comes to transcending left and right in policy, if you say, well, I'm socially liberal and I'm fiscally conservative, I'm the best of both worlds, most Americans go, you mean both shit worlds that I want nothing to do with? Or you mean, well, I got to give up half of the shit I like to get a bunch of shit that I don't want? No, that's not a way that you unify people. That doesn't bring people together. Like I said, localization, you get rid of the federal government. It means immediately if you're a liberal in a liberal state, you're a conservative in a conservative state, guess what? Unless you're a nationalist militarist, which is a small part of the population that's really screwing things up for the rest of us, and if anything, we need to gang up and make sure that those assholes don't have any power. But if it's liberal and conservative in a liberal state and a conservative state, guess what? Now you don't have to fight over national policy. You both get more of what you want right away. That's why localization is the everybody gets what they want strategy. And this really is more in line with libertarian values than playing issue by issue, playing their game. Larry Sharp, I love being able to quote him on this. He says, a libertarian is someone who says you can be as liberal or as conservative as you want, as long as you don't force it on anybody else. And anything other than what I'm proposing as a matter of policy is saying, I'm going to be president and I'm going to force some one-size-fits-all solution on the entire country and reduce your freedom to be autonomous and determine those policies for yourselves. I'm not playing that game. The policy of localization transcends all of those shortcomings of playing the left-right political issue, us versus them game. We can unite together and say, we don't have to be united under one government to be united in American values. So, next question. All right, wait, am I caught up already? No more questions. What do we do here, Tim? All right, we got more here. What would your plan be for sunsetting some of these government agencies in a way that would minimize pain points? So I could go agency by agency, but I'm going to kind of presume from your question that like the biggest one, in terms of reorganization would be the military. And it's actually not that complicated in terms of policy. How do we manifest the vision that the founders had for this country of a decentralized militia-based defense with no standing army? And it's, again, localization provides the way. So all the bases overseas, close them right away, bring all the troops, all the weapons home. The next step is to figure out, and of course this is all figured out in advance, but to separate offensive weaponry from defensive weaponry. So nukes, long-range bombers, nuclear submarines, aircraft carriers, done. De-weaponized, they go in the liquidation pile. Things that are legitimate for defense, oh, by the way, that goes with DARPA and all the research and all the nonsense there, all of that liquidated, all the patents, all the records, all of that gets made public. The remainder of that military force gets apportioned among the states and the new sovereigns from the breakup of the country. And what you're going to have then, this is a kind of a disappointing compromise for someone who's as anti-militarism as myself. But you know, if California breaks away, they're going to have the 7th largest economy in the world. Well, if they break away and they take their share of the military, they're going to have bigger than the 7th biggest military in the world because of how much the U.S. military spends, proportionately, just outstripping the rest of the world. It might be 7th. I don't know. China, I guess. China stays number 2. Texas goes, I don't know, maybe California gets bumped up 1 or 2. But you get my point, is that we would still have ridiculous outgrown militaries. In something like the Department of Transportation, right? We have a federal Department of Transportation, but we also have 50 state departments of transportation. So when you say, like, how do you sunset the agency and, you know, ease the pain points? There's no pain point. We end the pain point of the inefficiency of the federal Department of Transportation, cut it up into 50 pieces, and transfer authority over the resources and the facilities to the existing state departments of transportation. Not that complicated. CIA, FBI, NSA, you know, these are all redundant agencies. To what extent there's some role in some of those functions being localized to state governments. You know, the FBI does do some critical work that serves justice and tracking down real criminals. We want those resources to keep going to those things. We want that to continue. But we want states, we want those services to be more in line with the needs of the people they're supposed to be serving. We don't want any more federal victimless crime laws being enforced. That's absolutely critical. That ends on day one. So with those agencies, you know, you figure out what elements are appropriate for localizing to state control. States already have the equivalent of the FBI. They already have State Department, you know, investigative units. There's all sorts of state police resources. You look into the redundancy, it's absolutely insane. If you take away the mandate for law enforcement to mandate to enforce so many victimless crime laws, you would free up tons of resources to go after real crimes to the point they'd be, you know, pretty well non-existent. So just getting to that level of efficiency through localization, I think, goes a long way. If you want to follow up with a different question with a certain other example, I'll just point out 2 other things that are related to this in the bankruptcy process that I'm proposing. And one is, we get to release all the records, all the secrets, all the documents, all the patents, all of that gets released publicly. But there's just one major caveat to that, right? Because the federal government has a lot of your personal records that should not be released. I know some of your wheels are turning going, oh shit, do they have pictures of that too? Yeah, they got pictures of that at the NSA too. And we're not going to be releasing that when we say we're going to release all the documents. So there has to be a process of segregating or destroying records that shouldn't exist, or if possible, giving you a chance to reclaim your records, although I don't think that's really going to be likely in this process. But most importantly, we get all those documents to a central clearinghouse, and it could be the Library of Congress. That is the way that we do this. So we fund the Library of Congress to receive the documents from all these agencies as we shut them down. So like the IRS, you know, I don't want the IRS to last a second longer than it has to, right? So at day one, federal law stops being enforced, and the IRS agencies like that, they go to a skeleton crew. Basically, everybody gets a pink slip. 95% of the workforce gets a pink slip right away. You have a skeleton crew that gets together the documents, sends them over to the Library of Congress. And with the case of the IRS, most of it is, personal financial records that shouldn't exist. So they just go in the pile of not getting released. But all the agency records that are secret, all the enforcement records, all of that gets public as soon as it's scrubbed. Basically, as soon as we scrub the data that comes from those agencies, including FBI, CIA, maybe the NSA's got to have its own process. Who knows? And I'm really excited to have John McAfee helping out in the dissolution process if it goes this way. Or maybe Ed Snowden. Maybe we make Ed Snowden the custodian of the NSA, and he's the one overseeing this process of how do we get the documents from the NSA scrubbed of personal information and still get to release all of the records so that we can hold people accountable for the crimes committed by the federal government. And the other one is Social Security. Some agencies get spun off in this process. Like every agency goes through one of 3 or a combination of 3 processes in this bankruptcy. One, localization, right? You cut it up into 50 pieces, apportioned among the new sovereigns, done. So localization. Liquidation, right? We just liquidate, like an IRS. It's done. Send the records to the clearinghouse. Send everybody home. And then 3 is they get spun off. And the VA is my favorite example of this. As a disabled veteran myself, it is a travesty what has become of veterans' health care in this country. So what do we do with the VA? Privatize it, spin it off, give every single veteran in America one ownership voting share. Give us control of the institution. And I guarantee if you do that, you end the drug war, you get the politicians, the bureaucrats, the special interests out of the way. You will not have 22 veteran suicides a day. And anybody running for president who doesn't have a serious solution to the problem of 22 veteran suicides a day should not be taken seriously. Then the next thing then is Social Security gets spun off. As we're collecting these tokens with AmeriCoins, we keep spending them through Social Security, or rather distributing them. So Social Security is able to continue for as long as the auction does, and these tokens are backed with the value of the liquidating assets. So we have a bridge, 10 years for us to come up with something better at the state level, 10 years for the next thing, at least that we're funding Social Security as a bridge. So let's see. Oh, now we got a bunch more questions. All right. Sean Keller, Adam, were you given a hard time about your ideals conflicting with your military service? For example, I'm constantly being told that I'm a hypocrite because I'm still active while being liberty-minded. How did you reconcile the two? Well, I wish I could say I was more of a libertarian when I was in. And I know this is a bit of a weird background, but it's important for the question that I was sort of libertarian in name only. And in high school became a libertarian because I didn't want to be a Democrat or Republican, but didn't put much more thought into it than that. And the version of libertarianism that I was presented was socially liberal, fiscally conservative. And it's not. That is not what this message is. This is ethics. This is ethics applied to politics, if you want to make it a political message. And if I had gotten the true message of freedom in high school, I would never have enlisted in the first place. And I can say when I got back from Iraq, I was still an angry, arrogant, militarist, minarchist. And I didn't get to experience that real conflict while I was in. But if you're in right now, there is a certain conflict there that is worth appreciating. And I hope that whatever you're doing, you know that you never follow unlawful orders. You never do anything that's unethical. But in a sense, being a part of the military is fundamentally unethical. That you are taking money from politicians that has been stolen from the American people in order to be part of their force that kills innocent people, and you are helping kill innocent people for money. So, obviously you can make excuses and say, well, it's more complicated than that. And if you're, doing a job that, the market might provide anyway, but the military has a monopoly on it, then maybe it's justified. But I would say get out, get out. Don't be a part of it anymore. Don't put yourself in that position. And while you're in, take advantage of the opportunity to go out with a bang. We have a great group, Military for Kokesh, where you can be in the military and say, I'm supporting a libertarian presidential candidate who, by the way, is advocating for dissolving the military, and take advantage of the fact that you're in the military to use that as a platform. That's what, I wish I had been doing, and I did, as much as I could as a veteran when I got out. When my military status is relevant, I bring it up. I try not to say, oh, you should listen to me because I'm a veteran and I know better. None of that shit. And, like Ron Paul said, you don't have to go to Iraq to read the Constitution. So I'm sorry I can't answer that question directly from personal experience, but that would be my advice. Michael Haley, what would the libertarian plan for protecting the environment be? Put control of natural resources in the hands of people who have the most relevant lives to those resources. So localization, again, is the best way to do this. If you go to the extreme of libertarian principles, I shouldn't say extreme, but to the absolute of libertarian principle, nothing should be publicly owned. It should be privatized. That doesn't necessarily mean not by a large swath of the public, right? And Walter Block has done some great work on this. I really recommend what he wrote about privatizing the Mississippi River, which you think of as, whoa, this major intractable problem. But what he is that if we had a system based on legitimate land rights rather than government land rights, it would not be very difficult to have a system where the ownership of the river is by everybody who owns property on either shore. For the Grand Canyon, for example, here in my home state of Arizona, just to jump ahead, I'd like to see that transfer from being a national park to a state park. And so it goes from national control to state control. And right away, again, localization, you have a huge leap in the appropriateness of who's making decisions about usage of natural resources. People who live in at least the same state division or federally in Washington, D.C., thousands of miles away, right? And you go further with that, eventually we get rid of the state of Arizona and we get it down to the county, and maybe at the county level in the county with the Grand Canyon, everybody who's a resident of that county gets one ownership voting share in the Grand Canyon Company. And that's how those natural resources are managed, by people who have an actual interest in those resources. And one of the things that needs to be brought up more, I think, by libertarians is that part of our concept of property rights, right? That you can claim land, that you can homestead, that the only way you own something legitimately is by either trading for it or homesteading it, mixing your natural resources with the soil. That there's an implication to that, which is that we all have a right to equitable access to natural resources, and to have what resources we claim for a living space, like I have here with my 10 acres in the mountains in Arizona, that be respected. So getting to that, that point of tort reform, and I know that's a wonky legal term for it, but a society that expects people are held responsible for their actions when they pollute or damage other people's property is absolutely essential to preserving and maximizing the value of natural resources. And everything government does in that realm to interfere with real accountability makes that more difficult and makes it possible for major corporations and the biggest polluter in the world, the U.S. military, to get away with destroying natural resources without anyone even being in a position to hold them accountable as property owners. Joe Quas, how is John McAfee doing how is John McAfee doing these days? Mactastic. John is amazing. Please watch the video that we put out on Monday this week. It was 15 minutes. Great video. Just me and John talking about working together to end the Fed. And he's having a great life. He is in hiding right now, evading IRS charges. We love people who stand up to the theft that is taxation in the United States and the IRS. And John McAfee is dancing a beautiful legal dance right now. I hope that he can get the VP nod as my running mate, so we get him back here in the United States and confront the IRS. It's one of the great possibilities of him being the Libertarian VP nominee. Joe Quas, can you explain how we can make healthcare more affordable? The most important thing for making healthcare more affordable is getting rid of the bureaucracy that comes with federal regulation and insurance company regulation that creates an oligopoly. You know, there are a lot of people who want different means of pooling risk. There are people who want healthcare to come through their employers. There are people who want it through their communities and socialized medicine. I don't want that, but if people want that voluntarily, I want them to be able to get that. There are people who want, absolute free market decentralized medicine. I'm more on that range of the spectrum. And when we get to that point where we get rid of these massive, ridiculous government overheads, we can see a transition happening to true free market medicine, and that's going to make it a lot more affordable in the long run. But short-term, immediate fix, I think we can unite people in healthcare issues or around healthcare issues where we say, look, there's this massive bureaucracy where in the United States, something like 20% of money that's spent on healthcare goes directly to bureaucratic overhead. That's fucking insane. There's no excuse for that. For government to impose that on us is ridiculous. And the effects of this are so far-reaching. What does it mean when 20% of the dollars we spend on healthcare go to bureaucracy? That means 1 in 5 surgeries that could go to save a life. Well, we can't afford to pay for it. 1 in 5 treatments, 1 in 5 medicines, 1 in 5 whatever it is, we don't get, because instead of those resources going to healthcare, they go to bureaucracy. They go to satisfying government. And this doesn't even touch on all the ridiculous tax schemes that the government imposes around healthcare and, of course, insurance, and all the ways that the individuals are disadvantaged and corporations are at an advantage in the healthcare market. Joe Quast, do you like Tom Woods and Dave Smith? Obviously, we have some relatively superficial differences, but I love Tom Woods and Dave Smith. I've spoken with both of them. I've met Tom Woods personally, and these guys are both great messengers for freedom. And anybody, there's so many like them doing great work in podcasting and independent media production who deserve our support. Whatever it is that you watch, that you consume, if you ever watch something and like it, share it. If you're watching this right now and you're enjoying this conversation, please share it right now. When it's done, if you're watching this and it's not live and you get to the end of this video, please share it. Support the transition to independent media, whether it's Tom Woods or Dave Smith, or even just Ask a Libertarian hosting this AMA, doing something to create a new conversation that doesn't have corporate sponsorship, which means it requires your active support and participation. All right. I guess I appreciate having all the questions filtered for me, but sometimes I like to go and read the comments myself. Oh, see, we have. All right. Oh, wow. Skipping way ahead. I can't. Oh, it's hard to read with that pin message kind of in the way here. Any other comments? Oh, Marcus Pulis is with us. Marcus Pulis, our press secretary for Kokesh for President. Great activist, great volunteer. Check him out, Aquarian Anarchy on Twitter. He does some great memes there. A lot of stuff. I retweet. I'm most active on Twitter because I'm the least censored there. Let's see, another one from Joe Quast. If you or any libertarian were to be elected as president, would you expect any assassination attempts? It's a good question. Now, a lot of people have said in regards to my platform already, Adam, you're more likely to get assassinated than elected. And I've definitely accepted that. I've risked my life, obviously, volunteering to go to Fallujah for way less worthy causes before. But there are a couple things that I've done that I think protect me from this possibility that no other libertarian presidential candidate has. One, in particular, this book. Dead authors are way more popular than living authors. They shoot me for any kind of political purposes. It's going to be obvious. I think they're way better off trying to discredit me. I shouldn't be giving them this advice, right? But yeah, discredit me, slander me, set me up with personal conflict or smear campaigns, bad jacketing, to use the COINTELPRO lingo. These things are going to be much more effective against someone like me than killing me. You kill me, way more people are going to read this book, way more people are going to get this message, and I think that's going to have a way more positive impact than I could even as a living activist, or at least it might. And then with the presidential campaign, if you elect a libertarian to be president who wants to be president, first of all, I would question if they really are a libertarian. But then, second of all, yeah, you kill them. I don't think that's going to be what you galvanize the support against them. You would be better off crashing the economy under a libertarian president than assassinating him or her, because then you can blame them for crashing the economy. And if we elect a libertarian to be president in a world where the same power players pull the strings of the economy, I guarantee you someone like George Soros is going to be doing everything they can to crash the dollar. All the other rich assholes whose names you've never heard of before are going to be piling on, going, no, we got to crash the dollar. We can't let this thing continue. Or we got to crash the economy and come up with a new global, whatever. They'll take it as an opportunity to discredit the libertarian as president and ensure that we never have a libertarian president again. I have solved this problem in a number of ways. First, with my platform, with me, in that people say, what if we can't trust you, Adam? What if you get into the White House and on day one instead of the when we bring you the dissolve the federal government executive order and you go to sign, you go, hold on a second, why don't you bring me the dictator for life papers instead? And I've said this before, kill me, shoot me if you have to, but I would say you shouldn't have to. Put me in a straitjacket and lock me away and let me come to my senses. But it won't matter, because when the American people decide the federal government shouldn't exist anymore, they're not going to be able to stop us or slow us down. They kill me, the next person comes along. John McAfee, certainly as my running mate, would be at least as capable as I am, if not way more so, of carrying out the bankruptcy of the federal government. So I've kind of set myself up in a way with, again, the message, the line in the sand that is this platform, that once you come across, you don't go back, and shooting me only leads more people to cross that line. It doesn't erase the line. How would ANCAP society provide national defense? This is a long one. I've gone over it a lot. I don't want to give the complete answer, because we've got 10 minutes left, and it is about a 10-minute answer. But how would an ANCAP society provide national defense? Well, it wouldn't, because you don't have nation states in an ANCAP society. And what I'm not advocating for an ANCAP society. If I may, I guess it's worthwhile for this kind of inside baseball, ask a libertarian conversation. We can get into some semantic and rhetorical issues. Murray Rothbard is no doubt the godfather of the modern. Okay, I got a thumbs up for that. No doubt the intellectual godfather of the modern libertarian movement. And Ethics of Liberty was the seminal work of his that woke me up more than anything else. That being said, the term that he came up with to describe what he was talking about, which really was voluntarism, is anarcho-capitalism. He took the two worst possible words to describe what we are talking about and combined them into one term guaranteed to offend everybody. Really? And not only that, that's not my only problem with it, because if it was messaging but it was the best term, I'd be like, okay, fine. But it's not, because anarchy and capitalism are two possible outcomes of applying the ethics of Murray Rothbard. So they are the possibilities that you get after you embrace voluntarism. I'll bring this around to the defense question, don't worry. But if you say anarchy, a stateless society, it's not accounting for the possibility of voluntary governments, things that people would call government that are voluntary, that we wouldn't have a problem with. And even capitalism, if people come together voluntarily and form a socialist commune and they don't force it on anybody else, they don't violate anybody's property rights, we could be assholes about it and come in and say, well, no, it's voluntary, so it's capitalism. No, I would rather respect the fact that they are creating a genuinely unique economic system. I think we should respect that. So voluntarism is more important, and whatever comes out of voluntary cooperative actions is going to be the best that humanity is capable of, rather than one reduced in quality by coercive relationships. So provide for the national defense. I usually end the long rant with, as the founders proved, the best defense is a well-armed society that refuses to be governed by anyone, and as Gandhi proved, the well-armed part is optional. So really, in ANCAP society, what do we need for national defense? A continuous assertion of the fact that we're not going to be ruled by anyone. And when you say, I'll have a military, you're saying, I don't mind being taxed, I don't mind being ruled, I don't mind being governed. And we can't say that, because that's what makes you a juicy target for another government that would come in and, govern you. Johnny Ordville, do you still have your camper with the names in it? My name's in there, Johnny. Yes, I do. In fact, just for you, it is right behind me, actually, behind No Force One, the Freedom trailer. It is falling apart. It is really kind of sad. On the last tour, we had a wheelbarrow on the highway in front of us in the Suburban pulling the trailer, and had to swerve to miss it. And the trailer went up on one side and then slammed down, and then up even more on the other side and slammed down so hard that the box of the frame bent off the frame of the trailer, the steel, underlying it itself. So it's been here. We've had people stay in it, but it's just kind of going to shit. We had a family of cats move in while we weren't here. If someone wants to come rehab it or claim those signature panels, it would be a fun project out here. Otherwise, I might just end up scrapping it. If I get rich and get to start the Museum of Freedom, I'll rehab it and stage it in one corner of a big room, and we'll have the Museum of Freedom. If anybody has $1 million and you want to sponsor that, don't do it. We'll put the money to achieving actual freedom first. As long as you want to just give it a time call. Okay, yeah. So we're down to the last few minutes here. If anybody has, we'll do a quick lightning round. But in the last few minutes here, I am going to pick up this camera, go outside, and give you all a quick tour of the Garden of Freedom and our big igloo geodesics operations. So, what is the most impactful change in perspective you've experienced in running for president? Ooh, that's a good question. It deserves some reflective thought. Sort of like, what have I learned the most, or how has my perspective changed as a result of running for president? I don't think it has much. I mean, I could say in little ways. I mean, my worldview hasn't changed at all. I guess if anything, I'm more optimistic the more familiar I am with the Libertarian Party. Because I see how easy it is to get involved and to have an impact, to run for office as a Libertarian and get thousands, tens of thousands of votes, to get media interviews and reach millions and millions of Americans with this message. I encourage everybody to run for office as a Libertarian, whatever you credibly can. Even if not, run a paper campaign where you file for office and then put out press releases and go to debates and do interviews. Like, you take it, jump up on that platform. I think a lot of people misunderstand, what it means to run for office as a Libertarian, that you're saying, I can win and I should win. It's like, no, just I'm on the ballot and I'm an option, and screw you. You're going to tax me to make yourself relevant and build this platform. I better get up and stand on it. I want to see a Libertarian running for every single open seat anywhere in the country, even if it's just a paper campaign. We should give every American the opportunity to check an L for every single race as an alternative. So I guess that would be it. I've gotten more hope and more confidence and more faith in what we are doing as the freedom movement and as the Libertarian Party. So with that, I'm going to wrap this up. Unless Tim, if you want to give me the go-ahead in the chat here, let me know that I have met your expectations today and been sufficiently entertaining, and then we'll end with a flourish here, a little tour of the Garden of Freedom, just very briefly. So let's see. I should check my battery status. I've got my hotspot on here. Okay, Tim's giving me the thumbs up, so I'm going to turn off my hotspot to save battery. I'm going to turn my screen brightness up all the way so that I can see this while I'm outside. And now I'm going to shut down my laptop. And everybody all right, we'll save that for the next AMA. No one asked if they wanted to have a smoke. So no one said they wanted to have a smoke with me, or asked if I would have a smoke with them, or have a beer, right? Everybody wants the presidential candidate that you can have a beer with. But let's see, I'm going to put on my safety glasses here and my safety hat, of course, from the sun. And I guess we'll grab this for one last thing at the end here. So this is the bus, No Force One. You can see out the front we got my shipping container, where we are parked here at the Garden of Freedom in the mountains of northern Arizona. And I guess just first, since it was by request, boom, there is the Freedom trailer, Freedommobile 1, I guess you could say. And you can see even the front part is just falling apart here. It's really kind of sad. And I guess we'll take a quick peek in here for the people who didn't get to join us on any of the earlier Freedom tours. And I'm really embarrassed. I don't even want to show what this whole thing looks like. But you can see the interior of this thing, the whole thing. Stickers, signatures, a lot of really cool stuff. A lot of great memories in here. Back there I got my bird run. We don't have any chickens right now, but we hope to as soon as we get a caretaker out here, someone full-time who can be responsible for the animals. And then here I've got the big one-bedroom house I'm building around a 28-foot geodesic sphere. Geodesic. That's the dome. That's the sphere. This is Geosphere 2, an art installation piece that we're working on. for the official launch catalog with Big Igloo Geodesics. We got the one that's shelled there, got our shipping container workshop, the camp kitchen, and I love showing this off. So I guess we'll end with this last part of the tour. Well, a couple more things. Okay, so we got a dome that's going to be a greenhouse. We got a dome that is an outdoor garden trellis system, and then we have the coolest tree in the whole world. And I don't know if everybody can see this. I hope you all can see this okay. You can see what happened here is that we had a tree that fell over and decided to keep growing, but it didn't just fall over. It was taken down by people cable dragging this area, 2 bulldozers, steel cable in between in order to clear the area for cattle grazing. And now you can see there it is floating. The whole weight of this thing is supported, cantilevered by this tree. And I have these actually all over the property, trees that have been knocked down and come back up. I call them my survivor trees. And I think if you get out the door every morning and you see this, I don't know how you could possibly have a bad day. To me, it's like, wow, that's just something else, right? If that tree can say, I'm gonna get knocked down and I'm gonna keep going, I think I can too. And so here are the beautiful views. You can see No Force 1 there. Oh, we're gonna have a pretty sunset tonight. Look at that sky. Oh man, it's been a while since well, no, a while. It's been like a day. Last night we had a cloudless sky, but this is gonna be something epic. Yeah, you can see I got my weights, hammock, garden, and we got our little hangout up here on the roof of the camp kitchen here at the Garden of Freedom. Oh, I'm getting hearts. Thank you so much. All right, so we're gonna end this with one last smoke to say goodbye. You see, and if this is empty, I got the bong on the table here too. And with that, thank you so much for tuning in to the Ask a Libertarian AMA with myself, Adam Kokesh. My main website is thefreedomline.com. I do a live video product on Facebook every day at 3 p.m. Eastern Time for Adam versus the Man. It's a really fun show. I've always got someone in studio with me watching the comments, and we have a cool, calm, collected adult conversation about what is going on in the world today, especially in Coronaphobia America. So I hope you'll join us. My main website is thefreedomline.com, all 3 words, thefreedomline.com. From there, you can find all my social media, my YouTube channel with 80 million views that I got before I got shadow banned there. And you can find Big Igloo Geodesics at bigigloo.biz. You can find the Garden of Freedom, thegardenofreedom.com. And you can find kokeshforpresident.com from all that without having to remember to spell my funny last name. The main website, thefreedomline.com. Unless I see any other urgent comments. Joe Quas, you're cooler than I realized. Me too. Tim Cox, thanks for the tour. You are very welcome, brother. Donnie Smith, smoke on, Adam. Much love. Thank you very much. Chris Cole, there he is. All right, also with us. And I guess on that note, I'll just say, peace and love, y'all. Thanks for tuning in.